All right, let's get started at 6 o'clock. It is October 24th, 2019. This is the Upper Dublin School District Operations Committee meeting. I will call the meeting to order. First up, do we have any announcements, Mr. Leckman?
There are no announcements this evening.
All right, we do have minutes from our September meeting. If anyone has corrections, please get them to Brooke. First thing on the agenda is the regular monthly Sandy Run project update. Is there anything to call our attention to, or does anyone on the committee have questions? Nothing. Go ahead, Bob.
I do have some updates. We're trying to get the report from Dewey to be completed closer to when we're having the meeting, because so much has happened since that report was generated. But as of today, as anybody has driven past the building, the annex building in its entirety is down, and a large portion of the materials, the scrap metal and the trash, have been removed. Next week we should see the crusher coming in. Any of the stone that was there, the stone, the concrete, cinder block, is going to be crushed and used for fill on site as structural fill, so that's a good thing. And next week they expect to actually start pulling up the concrete slab and the foundation. Schedule looks good. I think we had till January to get all that done. Everything has been cooperating, and I expect we'll be done that end of November. So we're really on good pace with that. One of the things we talked about was air monitoring on the site also. What we did during the demolition, I was down on the site daily just taking observations, some pictures, and one of the things we kept an eye out was wind direction. Was there any dust being generated from the site? The requirements from the demolition contractor, their requirements by DEP are visual. They're not allowed to have any dust coming off the site, so they had a fire hose on the site on the days that it wasn't raining. We're lucky prevailing wind. The prevailing wind is away from the middle school, so we really weren't getting anything blowing there. Even the days we did have a change in wind direction, it still blew away from the school. Plus we had rain on those days, which kept the dust down. But Element Environmental, just to protect everybody on site, and wanted to know exact information. We had Element Environmental on site. They had machinery on site. They were testing upwind, downwind. They monitored for particulates, volatile organic compounds, and everything looked great. I expect a written report from them, but they didn't see anything. They were very happy with everything that they saw. Another thing, our temporary basins, or what people think are lakes there now after the recent rainstorms. There's 2 temporary basins. They've been completed in the underground. A lot of the underground drainage for the site has been completed already as well. Today they started on over-excavation. This is one I do need to give Dewey credit on this. A reef made the recommendation when we put the bid together. We knew we were going to have bad soils on the site. So let's over-excavate underneath the building pad and put a more suitable fill in. We started that work today, and they were exactly right. We are finding some unsuitable soils just because of the recent rain, so this work's already built into the project. We do have an allowance for anything above. We found a couple small areas today. I think there's a $400,000 allowance for unsuitable materials, and what we found today, calculations are going to be about $9,000 for this phase of the project. So asking us to put in the bid to bring stone in under the building pad was a great idea. So none of this is a change order right now. It's already built into the project. And another item I want to bring up is the preliminary lead. We had for the ACE grant, we have to go for LEED Gold. Some of the preliminary reviews were done, and one change needs to be made to our integrated pest management policy. It's very minor. We mentioned bait traps in our IPM. There's a specific bait trap that has to be mentioned for LEED purposes. So I'm going to be asking that we just add that phrasing to our policy. I'll have that from the architect, and if we can just get that in, they can resubmit that for us, so we'll get those LEED points.
Okay, thank you. I have one quick question. The Element Environmental item number 6 on our agenda, is that what you're discussing here, or is that a separate item?
Yes, that is the work that was done. That's why we asked for ratification for this plan. And we also have proposals from them. If anything were to be found down the road, either we had a moisture problem during construction or anything that affected middle school, we have items in place that we can just turn to their proposal. We already know what will need to be done in the
All right.
future.
So we'll discuss that more when we get down there. Anyone have comments or questions? Stan?
Is that a specific bait trap for a lanternfly, or is that for another?
A rodent.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for that update. Let's continue to pray for good weather. Stay well ahead of schedule. Okay, next up is PlanCon H for the general obligation bonds for last year and this year.
Yep, I'll cover this quickly. So PlanCon, I'm sure I don't need to go into a lot of detail about what PlanCon is, but PlanCon's the reimbursement process on school construction projects. On the project for Sandy Run Middle School, I think everyone's aware that the PlanCon is currently in a moratorium, so we do not expect to receive reimbursement at this time. However, what we all agreed to do was continue to do all the approvals for PlanCon, have that all in a file, so if we ever get the opportunity to submit for reimbursement, we will have this all. So PlanCon Part H, we'll have to do this for every financing that we do on the project. So this is for our first two financings on the project.
All right, comments or questions?
Is that costing us anything for doing this paperwork?
I believe it's part of Dewey's agreement with us. So they do all this work for us, Dewey and Breslin. So we're paying them to do this work for us. It's part of our agreements that we have with them. So yes,
Is it substantial? I mean,
I don't think it's substantial. I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Yeah, they do this all the time, and we this was part of our plan from the beginning when we first started the project, that we agreed we were going to continue to do the PlanCon process, even though it's under moratorium. Right, and PFM is also involved, at least in the financing pieces that are part of PlanCon. Okay, next up, change order. We'll go through these change orders one at a time. One for J.D. Morrissey.
Yes, this is an item we actually discussed last month. We just didn't have a formal change order in place. As a change order for $18,000 to bring in an additional fill material to take care of unsuitable soils, and this would have been at the entrance, the turning lane, the right turn lane to go into the middle school driveway.
Comments or questions? Okay. Oh, yeah. Here.
So I was there today, and I noticed there are people working finally. Do we have any estimate as to when that turn lane will be completed?
Yes, the big holdup on that, as we discussed before, was the that sewer line, the stormwater line that was underground. The holdup was getting the material. Material started arriving on site today. Morrissey started loading equipment in today. We expect them back Monday to start that work, and it should go very quickly after that.
And to clarify, you're talking about the turn lane from Twining onto Limekiln, right? Not from Twining into the driveway, right?
The whole lane widening for
Yeah.
that accommodate the left-hand turn lane. Yes.
Bob, is this mostly trucking the material in, or is it cost for the material, or is it just mostly labor, or did they give you any estimate on that?
For the change order, yes, it includes everything. They were very detailed on what the fees were. It's material, it's labor, it's trucking costs. It was their calculation, their fees that they charge for administrative. Anything that's standard on the change order, so it is all inclusive.
Next up, we have a change order for Sargent.
Yes, Sargent Enterprises. We had a change order, increase of the contract of $9,250. This was the first item was we reduced the excess liability policy. I think it was $5 million, we reduced it to $1 million for demolition of the building. It was more appropriate. And that was also calculated with the removal of 91 doors containing asbestos inside the annex. So the total number that we came out with was 91. We didn't want to attach that to our allowances. It would drain our allowances before we got to the other buildings. So we'd rather keep track of this as a change order for those doors.
Okay, and we're reducing the liability coverage from $10 million to $5 million just because the risk is lower because we've knocked down the building now. Is that correct?
I believe So 5 million is their standard for this type of work. That's the type of policy that they have access to, even though our bid document said $10 million. After discussing with Dewey, they agreed that $5 million was more than enough for this type of work they're doing for us.
Okay, great. Other comments or questions?
Is this the last of that, for the asbestos or the hazardous waste? Or are you gonna come back, are they gonna come back again in like 2-3 weeks and say, oh gee whiz, we found something else?
No, this was final for this portion of the job. The next time that we may be addressing this is the demolition of the main building in 3 years.
Yeah, it'll be hard to find anything now.
There's nothing there now.
Nothing there now.
All right.
And we discussed the main building. We were going to take a look to try to get ahead of the game to see if we do have the issues with the doors. Some of the wood doors we looked at where we added windows to the doors did not contain. So we're off to a better start than we were. But we're going to do a more thorough investigation on our next 3-year inspection.
Okay, next step is a change order Skepton for the right direction.
Yes, these are the ones you'd like to report. Total change order for the contract is $70,000 credit to us. This is Skepton has brought to different changes to our attention, product, just an alternative product that was specified. The first was, we discussed before, is modifications to the insulation. The original contract was everything was to be glued together. Skepton would give us a $25,000 credit if everything was mechanically fastened. It would be easier work for them. They could work faster. The weather isn't as difficult to work under. So they were giving us a $25,000 credit for that, and I think it's actually a better roof that you get. The second change order was the casework in the music rooms. We had casework for instrument storage. The specification was Wenger, which is a very premier product. There is a company in Pennsylvania, not too far away, Mastercraft, that can make the same product. They gave us a sample. Everybody looked, agreed it was a similar product and acceptable. And to use Mastercraft, we are saving $45,000.
Just to confirm, I believe the music people were involved in that discussion, Chris Horn, and everybody was on board with that.
Yes, the sample is in Chris Horn's office.
They were, and I also spoke with the Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Education in the Cumberland Valley School District. They also, in their latest building project, brought a change order for this product. They're very happy and satisfied with the product.
Other comments or questions? Stan?
Is there gonna be any change in the labor of installing these, the
No.
woodwork? No? Everything's
No,
gonna be,
it's everything, same dimensions, same size products, is just the manufacturer.
Okay, moving on to number 6 that we already touched on, indoor air quality monitoring.
Yes, we just want to bring this up for a ratification. We signed an agreement with, or entered an agreement with Element Environmental to do air quality monitoring. The amount was $1,375. We also have proposals on standby if we need them for any other services.
Comments or questions?
is this for the other building that is still up, or is this for the building that?
This covered both. This was during demolition. They staged equipment out between the two buildings, and what they were seeing led them to believe there was no reason to go inside the main building currently because there's no particulates or VOCs coming off the site. If they would have found something going towards the building, then they would have gone inside the main building to do additional testing, but there was nothing outside, so there would be no reason to look inside.
Okay, as soon as the building's demoed, they're done?
They're done, yes.
Okay.
We have proposals in case something happens. For some reason, we get a water infiltration into the main building because of something happening during construction. We're ready for any type of air quality or mold testing, remediation recommendations. So we're prepared for that.
And I should have been doing this all along, so 2 through 6 will move forward to the legislative meeting on Monday. Number 7, water treatment systems at Washington and the high school.
Yes, this is the project that never seems to end. spoke several months ago, we brought on another HRG group to help us out with paperwork that's required for the DEP. DEP, a lot of the reporting paperwork, unless you work for the DEP or a company that does their paperwork every day, it doesn't make any sense. So we hired HRG to come in, give us help with this paperwork. And then we've noticed some other things. So we started doing some of the reporting that was required with this paperwork. We were missing information. DEP was sending us letters saying you need to go over. We're missing paperwork. We're missing test results. So we did. I had a meeting a week ago with our water operator. HRG group sent their engineer down, and we sat in the same room with DEP at their southeastern office just to go make sure everybody's on the same page. It was a great meeting, very productive. DEP's on our side helping us with this. You know, the letters that they sent were to us before, really to get our attention, make sure we had everybody on board. As a result of the meeting, we are going to change our sampling company. The company we're doing to take our water samples, from we understand, is just overloaded with work from another company that had gone out of business. They acquired many of their accounts. They weren't meeting the needs. They were taking the wrong numbers of samples, or they would skip a week when they should have been out weekly. That was a source of a problem. So that's been corrected. We have a new company on board. They came out yesterday just to take the first samples to make sure we are in compliance. I expect a proposal from them any day so we can enter into a contract with them. But we also addressed issues that are going to be coming up. Our operator's not quite as comfortable with the system that we have. We experienced some problems with, we were using a zinc orthophosphate. He brought people in to do some testing, and the zinc orthophosphate that was originally specified by our engineer isn't very compatible with the Ambler water. And what it was doing, we were finding inside our boilers and other equipment that it would gum up little orifices. So we have some new chemicals that are recommended that we're going to be switching to, but also how the chemicals get mixed. He would like to see an improvement that will give us a better product. But right now, this is nothing that leads to health concerns. It's just better operation of the system, get better results, less equipment maintenance for our results. We are going around now, our lead and copper testing will be taking place as part of this new service group that we have. They're probably going to see some recommendations of how we blend our chemicals to get better coverage, and some additional changes to some piping at Fort Washington Elementary that really isn't letting the system work as well as it should. Really cut ties with the company who designed the system, Keystone Engineering, and the company that did the installation. They were not very helpful, so we did cut all ties, and we have the proper people in place now that are really helping with this.
So to clarify, just to make sure I understood, in terms of drinking water quality, we don't expect to discover anything new when we get new test results from a new company?
Absolutely not. No, we don't expect anything new. This is just better application, more confidence in the system, that we are going to keep the levels low. And just to recap where we were, with the acidity of the Ambler water, you know, the pH range, we were finding dissolved copper in certain areas of the high school, not everywhere, but in certain areas we found. And then one or two locations in Fort Washington, because of some of the older fixtures, lead would pop up out of certain fixtures, and this would take care of that. Now we're changing fixtures where we can, and it's not an overall problem, but you know, we have made the remedial measures through the system. But that's how this started, is we found those levels in our drinking water. I think we're ahead of most districts who are really just starting to do testing now.
Comments or questions?
The old testing company, are they liable for any of this, you know, these added work that we have to do now, since they missed testing dates and all that?
I think if we would have faced penalties from the DEP, financial penalties, I think we would have had some liability to go back, but really it was a reporting issue. They just weren't keeping the proper quantities, the paperwork, and the timing was off. So we weren't facing any penalties. Work is getting done. It just, there's a better way. And we only had a purchase order with them. Now we have a complete spreadsheet now of testing dates, times, and moving several years forward. that we worked with the DP to develop the spreadsheet. So we have much more detailed information to give the new company.
Where are we with the installation of those water fountains, the bottle-filled water fountains that we're replacing the old ones?
Fort Washington, we've gotten rid of all the old water fountains. Thomas Fitzwater again, and Jarretttown, we've got rid of the old water fountains. We've actually, right now, we're currently installing a new one at Thomas Fitzwater because they didn't have enough water fountains. There's a wing of the building that wasn't covered, so there is one being added. All the other current water fountains that we had, mostly middle school, the one, like I said, we're getting rid of the other ones. We do have filters added onto them. And we did a water quality test after adding the filters, and our results were excellent. Well, the PFAS were down
And
to
you have
zero.
to change those filters on a regular basis.
Correct. The new machines tell us when it's time to change the filters.
Right.
They actually
New
have
ones.
indicator lights. We keep an
Green.
eye on that. And the other filters we change, they're good for 6 months. We're changing them every 6 months. So we change them over the summer break, then again during winter break.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on to the status of the Fort Washington roof.
Yes, this was an issue. I don't have a full report, but I want to get ahead of it and let you know what's going on. We had called the roofer out, the warranty company, Atlantic Roofing. We were having some leaks around the flashing, the edges of the building. They came in, they started to make a repair, but noticed this was happening in too many places. So they brought somebody from their company that goes in, studies the roof, gives recommendations. What we found is in 2012 was when the new roof was placed on the building. And what they did was a roof recovery system with Carlisle roofing systems. The roof recovery leaves the old roof in place and adheres the new roof to the old roof, basically putting like in your home, putting a second set of shingles on. What was happening, the new roof is perfectly adhered to the old roof. The problem is the old roof, the insulation that's underneath, the old roof is no longer adhered in many spots to the insulation, and it allows movement of the entire roofing membrane system. And what it's doing is it's pulling away from the flashings. They walked around the roof basically with a suction cup pulling up on the roof. If they had lift, they know that they have a problem where the old roof's adhering to the insulation. They did a test cut where they cut out a section to confirm that's what they found, and it's a problem where there's a delamination with the insulation material. So that is going through the warranty process right now. We're looking at it. I asked Michael Johnson, who was our architect for the windows and the air conditioners, that project, I asked him to become involved, review. He has familiarity with this type of system and this type of problem. He is aware there are fixes. Some are very simple fixes. So we're going to use him for guidance to make sure that we are getting the right information to protect us. The fix may be as simple as adding some ballast, such as pavers, walking pavers to the roof, similar to what we have in the high school. We just want some added weight because what we don't want is the wind getting under the roof and shifting the membrane. So usually they add weight. Tearing off the roof, tearing off the insulation would be a major project. And they said the membrane is perfect. The membrane's fine. It's just a little bit of movement where it pulls away from the flashing. So there are known fixes, and that's what we're looking to do. We're waiting for the report. Hopefully next month I'll have a formal report for you with recommendations from our architect and the warranty.
All right, comments or questions?
Bob, my experience with the membrane of the roof is when we have a heavy rainstorm, that the drains don't drain off the water sufficiently enough, and the weight of all the water stretches that membrane and pulls it away from the parapet, and or the flashing. Did the roofer or your inspector mention anything that could have been a reason why the flashing separated?
What you're describing, the pulling away from the parapet, that is what we're seeing. We do annual roofing inspections with the warranty company. They do send somebody out to make sure they catch this. So this was something recent that's happening. We haven't had a standing water issue on the Fort Washington roof. We're up there. We regularly clean out drains. We're actually more often up there to get the the footballs and kickballs off the roof for the students. So we aren't there quite often, and standing water is usually not an issue. There is also the weight of all the equipment we have, air conditioning equipment, ventilation fans. That was one of my questions that they're looking into too, is it almost looks like there was some shrinkage of the membrane. Is that because it's not adhered to the insulation anymore and it allows that to happen? These are all the questions that we're waiting to hear back from the final report.
Anyone else? All right, so we'll look forward to that report next time. This feels like another topic that never goes away, sprinkler heads in Maple Glen.
Yes, it's a project that we delayed. We had so much work going on in Maple Glen over the past few years, but it's time to readdress the changing of the sprinkler heads that need to get done. I think we discussed this a year or so ago. There was a recall on the central sprinkler head. We didn't take advantage of the recall. I look back, I have friends with Tyco who bought Central Sprinkler. He was able to find the files. This occurred probably 5 years ago when this started, where there's a disagreement when Aramark was here with the terms and conditions of the warranty replacement. Aramark didn't reply to, they wanted changes to the terms that Central Sprinkler wanted. Central Sprinkler, which was acquired by Tyco, said, no, this is the document, you either sign it or you're out of our recall program. The document wasn't signed, so we were kicked out of the recall program. Tried to get back into it. That program's been closed. There's no more funds allocated for it. Tyco's since been sold to Johnson Controls. So we do need to be on our own to change the sprinkler heads. So I asked, I just want to make sure we get good bid documents on this. There's a lot of survey work that needs to be completed. Really, the calculations don't need to be done, but there's a lot of hidden sprinkler heads in attics. So we asked DJ Vervarelli, who did our chiller and window air conditioner project, if they can assist. They gave us a proposal for $18,000 to put together all the bid documents, conduct all the surveys, and help us with the project, with the bidding and of the project. They're going to put together a project to be done in a way that we can do this during breaks in the summer, because Maple Glen, with the work that we've been doing at Fort Washington with the windows, last year with the air conditioners, Maple Glen has really become our primary place for summer programs. And so they're going to create this project for us so we can still continue to have summer programs at Maple Glen. Maple Glen has the air-conditioned gyms for the elementary students, so we can continue to do this. We can do this work without disrupting those programs during the summer.
As I read the document, it looks like it's more than just replacing heads. They're talking about whole building plans, and are they talking about restructuring the entire sprinkler system, or is it really just
No,
heads?
they are digging through the old plans, basically reviewing all the piping, where the heads may be. It's a lot of investigation work. They're going to modify basically take the drawings for us and edit the drawings to indicate where the new heads need to be.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Sarah.
Is this a safety concern at all, since we're not able to replace all the heads like immediately?
No, we did discuss this. I talked about this with people from Tyco. What the problem was, the central sprinkler head, they used a rubber gasket inside the sprinkler head, and it had a reaction with the cutting oil that the sprinkler fitters would use in the pipe. So there were situations where the O-rings had swelled inside the sprinkler heads, and when the sprinkler head went off, there could be a potential that no water would come out because the ring was swollen. When you look at what the pressures are, there's a minimum and maximum pressure for the sprinkler head. They made the recall decision based on minimum working pressures in the sprinkler system. We're not even close to minimum. We are so far above. We have a fire pump because of the size, the length of the building, that will overpressurize anything. So if there is a fire, we do not see any indication that these heads will not activate because it was designed minimum. We are far above minimum pressures, so that'll overcome. And it wasn't a case where it happened to every sprinkler head. It was only under certain conditions with the water. So the recommendation was just to change everything.
And is it worth trying to be in touch with the Aramark, since they screwed this up 5 years ago?
I guess it's going to be a decision we'll have to discuss further.
Okay. Well, it was Aramark that was handling facilities at the time, because facilities was not Mr. Lester, and Mr. Lester came in just a couple of years ago. So at the time, Aramark was the one that was monitoring all this, and they're the one that made the decision not to file or sign the recall. So I think that's probably something that we could reach out and,
I'll gather the paperwork and we can discuss that with the solicitor.
great, thank you.
Yeah, good point, Sarah. Well, what about reaching out to Johnson Controls instead of getting, this $18,000 consulting fee?
They only provide I did have discussions with people in their warranty claims department, and yeah, they really washed their hands of the situation. They don't want anything to do with it now. It's on us. They can sell us heads at a good price, but they don't do any of the engineering or any of the work, the groundwork that needs to be done.
Do all the sprinkler pipes have water in them right now, or they're all empty?
No, you're referring to is there's different types. You can have sprinkler pipes filled with water, compressed air for situations where there's lack of heat. No, we do not have any dry systems. So all of ours are filled with water, yes. And we do our annual inspections. In fact, we're actually due for our 5-year inspection at Jarretttown. So there's a 5-year inspection where they physically open the sprinkler pipes and look inside. They'll pull end caps off. They'll look through. There's extra flow tests. So Maple Glen, we did Maple Glen, I believe, 2 years ago on that 5-year test. And the fire pump test is annual also, and all test results are coming back good.
Can you reach out to our fire company too, to ask them to look at their thoughts, give them
Yeah,
their thoughts?
Tim Shuck's with me all the time for inspections in the building, the fire marshal. So yes, he's aware of, I make him aware of what's going on.
All right, other comments or questions? All right, last up, donation of batting cage and fence for Loch Alsh baseball field.
Yes, I met with Michael Klein, and UDJA would like to donate new batting cage and fencing for the 60-foot baseball field. That's a smaller baseball field across from Thomas Road, Fort Washington Avenue. We don't use this field for any of our schools currently, so it's strictly their use. So they would like to, they added infield dirt for us a few years ago in this field, and they would like to now donate new fencing, improve the conditions on that field.
So when that happens, is it we do the specifications and the installation and the work and they reimburse us, or how does that actually?
They're going to bring us the specifications. We'll take a look to make sure we agree with it. Yeah, they're handling everything on this. They just want to make sure that we're on board.
All right, other comments or questions?
So is that just replacing what's existing currently, or are they expanding it? Is it in a different location?
No, the location will not change. It's not, there is no expansion of the fence. It's replacing currently what we have.
Anyone else? All right, always appreciate the cooperation with UDJA. Will we have anything the board needs to take action on in the future on this, or is this is just informational?
Yeah, I would think once this is all defined, the board would accept the final donation before it goes into place. Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, we are up to community input. Oh, there are no reports under transportation. There's no community input tonight. So our next operations committee meeting will be Thursday, November 21st at 6 p.m. here in the Cardinal Room. We are adjourned. We'll take 5 minutes to reset for finance.